Jackson Reed tapped his Mont Blanc pen against the mahogany table, glancing at his platinum Rolex. 10 minutes late. In the high-stakes world of corporate acquisitions, punctuality wasn't just courtesy, it was currency. The restaurant's private dining room, with its panoramic views of Manhattan's skyline, had been reserved exclusively for this meeting. $200 million hung in the balance. "More water, sir?" asked the waitress, a young woman with intelligent eyes and a name tag that read Emma. "No," Jackson replied curtly, not bothering to look up from the contract draft before him. At 42, Jackson had built Titan Ventures from his college dorm room into a billion-dollar investment empire. Forbes had recently featured him as one of America's most eligible bachelors, wealthy, powerful, and notoriously difficult to work with. His reputation for ruthlessness preceded him, but no one could argue with his results. The door swung open, and Marcus Bennett entered, flanked by two lawyers. Stocky with salt-and-pepper hair, the owner of Bennett Technologies carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd started with nothing and built an empire. His company's revolutionary security software had government agencies and Fortune 500 companies lining up, and Jackson wanted it. "Jackson," Marcus extended his hand. "Sorry for the delay, traffic was a nightmare." Jackson stood, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Let's not waste any more time." As they settled into their seats, Emma returned with a bottle of Chateau Lafite Rothschild, 1982. "Mr. Reed's special request," she explained as she began pouring. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You've done your homework. My favorite." "I make it my business to know what matters to potential partners," Jackson replied, signaling for Emma to leave. "Now let's discuss why Bennett Technologies is worth only $180 million, not the 200 you're asking," Marcus chuckled. "Straight to the point. That's what I appreciate about you, Jackson. But my company's projected growth over the next quarter alone justifies the asking price." For the next hour, they engaged in the delicate dance of negotiation. Numbers were proposed and rejected. Lawyers interjected with clauses and conditions. Outside, the sun began to set, casting golden light across New York City's glass towers. "I think we're making progress," Marcus said finally, loosening his tie. "But I'm still not convinced you understand the true value of what we've developed." Jackson leaned forward. "Then enlighten me." Marcus hesitated, then pulled out his tablet. "What I'm about to show you isn't in the public prospectus." He tapped the screen, pulling up a series of graphs. "This is our new cybersecurity platform. Beta testing shows it's 95% effective against the latest ransomware attacks. That's 20% better than anything currently on the market." Jackson's interest peaked. This was exactly what he'd suspected. Bennett had been holding back their most valuable intellectual property, and the government contracts, already in preliminary discussions with 3 agencies. Marcus smiled. "Now do you understand why $200 million is actually a bargain?" The door opened again, and Emma entered with their appetizers. Jackson frowned at the interruption, but noticed something strange. The waitress's hands were trembling slightly as she set down the plates. When she leaned over to place Marcus's dish, she whispered something in his ear. Jackson couldn't hear the exchange, but he watched in confusion as all color drained from Marcus's face. "Excuse me," Marcus said abruptly, standing. "I need to step out for a moment." Jackson's frustration flared. "We're in the middle of a critical discussion." Marcus was already moving toward the door, his lawyers exchanging puzzled glances. 5 minutes, Jackson, it's important." As the door closed behind them, Jackson turned to Emma, who was still lingering by the table. "What did you say to him?" Her eyes darted nervously to the window. "Sir, I think you should leave too, right now." "Excuse me?" Jackson's voice hardened with indignation. No one told him what to do, especially not a server at a restaurant. "Please, Mr. Reed, you need to leave this room immediately." Her voice was quiet, but urgent. Jackson stood slowly, towering over her. "I don't take orders from waitstaff. I've reserved this room for the entire evening, and I'm not going anywhere until this deal is closed." Emma took a deep breath. "Sir, my name isn't actually Emma. I'm Kate Sullivan, FBI. We have reason to believe there's an imminent threat to this building." Jackson stared at her, trying to process her words. "If this is some kind of joke, the man at the bar in the blue suit has been watching your table for the past hour," she continued, her voice steady now. "He's connected to an organization that's been targeting high-profile business deals. We believe he may have planted an explosive device somewhere in this section of the restaurant." As if to punctuate her words, a commotion erupted in the main dining area. Jackson moved to the window and saw people hurriedly exiting the restaurant below. "Mr. Bennett is already being escorted to safety," Kate said. "Now it's your turn." Jackson's mind raced. His instinct was to grab the contract. 2 months of negotiations couldn't go up in smoke, but Kate was already taking his arm, guiding him toward a service door at the back of the room. "My briefcase," Jackson insisted, reaching for the Italian leather bag beside his chair. "No time," Kate replied firmly. As they moved through the narrow service corridor, Jackson heard urgent voices over Kate's radio. The corridor led to a stairwell, and they began descending rapidly. "Why would anyone target this meeting?" Jackson demanded as they rushed down the stairs. "Your acquisition has competitors, Mr. Reed, powerful ones who'd rather see Bennett's technology in different hands." Kate paused at a landing, checking her weapon. "Or it could be related to your other business activities. You've made enemies in various sectors." Jackson processed this information with growing alarm. His mind flashed to the hostile takeover of Westridge Industries last year and the subsequent suicide of its CEO. Or perhaps it was the controversial mining operation in South America that had displaced an indigenous community. Success in business required difficult decisions, he'd always told himself. They reached a service exit that opened into an alley behind the restaurant. A black SUV was waiting, engine running. "Get in," Kate instructed, scanning the area with practiced efficiency. As Jackson slid into the back seat, he found Marcus already inside, face ashen. "Did you know about this?" Jackson demanded. Before Marcus could answer, Kate climbed into the passenger seat, and the driver pulled away from the curb with urgency, but without drawing attention. "Where's Bennett's security team?" Jackson asked, suddenly realizing the lawyers and bodyguards were nowhere to be seen. "Separate vehicle," Kate replied tersely, speaking into her radio again. Jackson and Marcus exchanged tense glances as the SUV navigated through Manhattan traffic. Years of business instinct told Jackson something wasn't adding up. Why was he in the same evacuation vehicle as his acquisition target, and why had Kate, or whatever her real name was, been positioned as their server for weeks before this supposed threat emerged? "I think we deserve some answers," Jackson said finally. Kate turned in her seat to face them. "Mr. Reed, Mr. Bennett, what I'm about to tell you changes everything you think you know about this deal." The SUV turned sharply, entering an underground parking garage. As the vehicle descended into the shadows, Jackson realized with growing certainty that his life was about to take a dramatic turn, and the $200 million deal was likely the least of his concerns. The underground parking garage was eerily quiet, with fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across concrete pillars. Jackson studied Kate as she spoke quietly into her radio, her server's uniform incongruous with her authoritative demeanor. The facade of Emma had completely vanished. "We're secure," she announced, turning to face them. "For now." "I want verification," Jackson demanded, his business instincts kicking in despite the situation. "Badge, ID, something." Kate pulled out credentials that identified her as Special Agent Catherine Sullivan, FBI Financial Crimes Division. Jackson examined it carefully before handing it back, his mind racing to understand how his carefully orchestrated acquisition had spiraled into this chaos. "Is there actually a bomb threat?" Marcus asked, his usual confidence noticeably diminished. "The threat is real," Kate confirmed, "but it's more complicated than that." She nodded to the driver, a broad-shouldered man who hadn't spoken a word. "This is Agent Dominic Taylor. We've been investigating a criminal organization that's been manipulating the technology market for the past 18 months. Jackson's eyes narrowed. "And this relates to our deal how, exactly?" Kate pulled out a tablet. "Bennett Technologies isn't just valuable for its cybersecurity innovations. It's become the centerpiece of a sophisticated market manipulation scheme." She displayed a complex network of shell companies and transactions. "Someone's been strategically investing in your competitors while simultaneously working to ensure this acquisition fails." Marcus paled. "That's impossible. Our financials are rock solid, and our security protocols—" "Your chief financial officer, William Parker, has been compromised," Kate interrupted, showing them a series of photographs. They depicted a middle-aged man, unmistakably Parker, meeting with various individuals in discrete locations. Jackson felt a cold fury building inside him. He'd spent weeks analyzing Bennett's financial statements, which Parker had personally vouched for. If those numbers were manipulated— "Parker has access to everything," Marcus muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Our intellectual property, client lists, security architecture." Precisely why he was targeted, Agent Taylor spoke for the first time, his voice unexpectedly gentle. They approached him 8 months ago. His daughter's medical bills were substantial after her accident, and they offered a solution. Jackson remembered reading about Parker's family tragedy, a car accident that had left his teenage daughter partially paralyzed. The company had covered some expenses, but specialized treatments weren't included in their insurance. "How deep does this go?" Jackson asked, his analytical mind already calculating potential damages. "Deep enough that you're both in danger," Kate replied. "The organization behind this doesn't leave loose ends." Marcus looked devastated. "My company. Everything I've built." Jackson studied the man across from him. In the harsh light, Marcus Bennett looked older, the weight of betrayal evident in the slump of his shoulders. Despite their adversarial negotiation stance, Jackson felt an unexpected pang of empathy. He'd built Titan Ventures from nothing, understanding the personal cost of creating something meaningful. "What's your play here, Agent Sullivan?" Jackson asked, addressing Kate directly. "I assume you didn't orchestrate this extraction just to deliver bad news." "We need your help," Kate admitted. "Both of you. For months, we've been tracking financial anomalies connected to Bennett Technologies and several other firms in the cybersecurity sector. But we've hit walls, encrypted communications, offshore accounts, cutouts that lead nowhere." "You need access that only insiders would have," Jackson concluded. His mind was already sorting through possibilities, analyzing angles like he would any business problem. "You want us to proceed with the deal as a cover?" Kate nodded. "With modifications. We need to draw out the entire network, not just Parker." Marcus looked up sharply. "You want us to use my company as bait?" "We want to protect your company and catch the people threatening it," Agent Taylor corrected, "and prevent them from doing this to others." The SUV fell silent as both businessmen processed the implications. Jackson's phone vibrated, his executive assistant wondering about the meeting's status. He ignored it, focusing instead on Kate. "If I walk away from this deal now, what happens?" he asked. "Best case? The organization finds another buyer they can manipulate. Worst case? They liquidate their valuable assets, including intellectual property stolen from Bennett Technologies, and disappear. Either way, Marcus loses everything, and they're free to target other companies." Jackson turned to Marcus. "And if we cooperate with the FBI?" "There are no guarantees," Kate answered honestly, "but you'll have the full resources of our division backing you." A lifetime of business negotiations had taught Jackson to read between the lines. Kate wasn't telling them everything, federal agents never did, but her urgency seemed genuine. He studied Marcus, seeing the same calculation happening behind his eyes. "I need to speak with Mr. Bennett, alone," Jackson stated. Kate hesitated, then nodded. "5 minutes. We'll step outside." Once the agents left, the two businessmen regarded each other in silence. The negotiation table had been replaced by the back seat of an SUV, but the stakes had grown exponentially higher. "Do you trust them?" Marcus asked quietly. "About 60%, Jackson replied honestly, "but I trust whoever's targeting your company even less." He leaned forward. "Tell me something the FBI doesn't know, something Parker couldn't have accessed." Marcus seemed surprised by the request but thought for a moment. 3 weeks ago, I was approached by a representative from Meridian Capital. They expressed interest in acquiring specific patents, not the entire company, for an absurd sum. I declined." Jackson nodded slowly. Meridian Capital was a notorious front for several questionable investment groups. "That fits. They were testing whether you might carve up the company, sell off the pieces they specifically wanted. And when I refused, they accelerated their timeline," Jackson finished. "My offer threatened their strategy. A new understanding passed between them, businessmen recognizing a predatory tactic when they saw one. Jackson had used similar methods himself, though never crossing into illegality. He felt a grudging respect for Marcus's refusal to dismember his life's work for quick profit. "If we do this," Marcus said slowly, "I need your word that you won't use this situation to devalue my company further." Jackson raised an eyebrow. Even in crisis, Bennett remained a shrewd negotiator. Fair enough. The original offer stands, 200 million contingent on verification of assets once this situation is resolved. Marcus extended his hand. Deal. When the agents returned, both men had composed themselves, presenting a united front that clearly surprised Kate. We'll cooperate, Jackson announced, but on our terms. This isn't just your operation anymore, it's our companies and our lives at stake. Kate's expression remained professional, but Jackson detected relief in her eyes. What are your conditions? First, we need complete transparency, no more surprises, Jackson said firmly. Within operational security limits, Kate countered. Second, Marcus added, we proceed with the acquisition as planned, publicly at least. It gives us legitimate reasons to communicate and share information. Kate nodded. That works in our favor. What else? Protection for our key personnel, Jackson continued. Discreet surveillance on my executive team and Marcus's leadership. Already arranged, Agent Taylor confirmed. Jackson locked eyes with Kate. Finally, I want to be present when you confront Parker. I need to see his face when you take him down. Kate started to object, but Marcus interrupted. I second that request. William has been like family. I need to understand why. The agents exchanged looks. We'll consider it, Kate said finally. Now, we need to move you both to secure locations. We've arranged for... The SUV suddenly rocked as something struck it from behind. Agent Taylor swore, throwing the vehicle into drive. We've been compromised, Kate said sharply, drawing her weapon. Hold on! The SUV lurched forward, tires squealing as it ascended the garage ramp. Jackson and Marcus braced themselves against the seats as Agent Taylor executed a sharp turn onto the street. Through the rear window, Jackson spotted two black sedans in pursuit. His world of boardrooms and business deals seemed suddenly distant, replaced by a reality he'd only seen in movies. Yet strangely, the familiar rush of adrenaline felt not unlike closing a difficult acquisition. The same clarity, the same heightened awareness. This changes things, Kate said grimly, checking her weapon. We need to separate you two. Different locations, different security details. As Agent Taylor navigated aggressively through Manhattan traffic, Marcus caught Jackson's eye. A silent communication passed between them. They'd struck their own deal, and the FBI's plans would need to accommodate it. Not happening, Jackson replied calmly, despite the chaos around them. You need us both to make this convincing, and we need each other to ensure neither of us gets conveniently lost in the shuffle of your operation. A bullet shattered the rear window, sending glass fragments spraying through the vehicle. As they ducked for cover, Jackson realized that the world he'd navigated so confidently for decades had transformed in an instant. The rules of business were being replaced by the rules of survival, and he would need to adapt quickly if he hoped to emerge from this with his deal and his life intact. The safe house was a nondescript brownstone in Brooklyn, its ordinary appearance belying its reinforced windows and sophisticated security system. Jackson stood by the window, watching raindrops trace patterns on the glass while Marcus paced the floor behind him. 12 hours had passed since their dramatic escape from the pursuing vehicles. 12 hours of debriefings, security protocols, and mounting tension. Your coffee, Mr. Reed, said Agent Taylor, offering a steaming mug. The FBI agent had shed his driver persona, revealing himself to be the operation's tactical lead. Any news? Jackson asked, accepting the coffee. We've contained the immediate threat. The men in those vehicles have been apprehended, but they're just hired muscle, not the masterminds. Kate entered the room, phone in hand, her expression grim. We have a problem. News of your interrupted meeting has leaked to the financial press. Titan Ventures stock dropped 8% this morning, on rumors the Bennett acquisition is falling through. Jackson cursed under his breath. Market perception was everything in his world, and right now perception suggested weakness. We need to get ahead of this, he said, already calculating damage control strategies. Release a joint statement saying negotiations are continuing, but were temporarily postponed due to scheduling conflicts. Marcus nodded in agreement. My communications team can coordinate with yours. We need to project stability. There's more, Kate said, hesitating. William Parker was found dead in his apartment an hour ago, made to look like suicide. Marcus sank into the nearest chair, the color draining from his face. Dear God, he whispered, William has had a family. Jackson observed the genuine grief in Marcus's reaction. Despite everything, Parker had been more than a CFO to him. The human cost of this conspiracy was becoming painfully real. "This changes our timeline," Kate continued. "Whoever's behind this is cleaning house. They know we're onto them." Jackson's analytical mind was already adapting to this new information. Parker's death actually gives us an opportunity. The organization believes they've eliminated a vulnerability, which means they'll proceed with their original plan. "You want to use a man's death as a tactical advantage?" Marcus looked at him incredulously. "I want to ensure he didn't die for nothing," Jackson countered, "and prevent anyone else from sharing his fate." The room fell silent, the ethical dilemma hanging in the air. Jackson had built his fortune making cold calculations, but even he felt the weight of this decision. Kate's phone rang, breaking the tension. She stepped away to answer, speaking in hushed tones before returning with renewed urgency. "Our analysts found something in Parker's financial records, monthly payments to a shell company called Artemis Consulting. The same company appears in the financial structures of 3 other tech firms that faced hostile takeovers in the past year." "Artemis," Jackson repeated thoughtfully. "The hunter." He turned to Marcus. "Who handles your company's external legal affairs?" "Westlake and Pruitt," Marcus replied. "They've represented us for years. Why?" Jackson exchanged a significant look with Kate. "Because Westlake and Pruitt drafted the acquisition agreements for 2 of those takeovers. I remember because my legal team noted their unusually aggressive terms." Kate was already typing on her tablet. "Westlake and Pruitt's managing partner is Lawrence Westlake. He sits on the board of Meridian Capital." "The same Meridian Capital that approached me about selling specific patents," Marcus added, connecting the dots. "This goes beyond Parker." Jackson's mind raced with the implications. "They've been orchestrating these acquisitions from both sides, placing moles in target companies, while simultaneously controlling the legal framework of the deals." "A perfect system," Kate agreed. "They identify valuable technologies, compromise key executives to gain insider information, then manipulate the companies towards specific buyers they control or influence." "But why target my deal with Bennett Technologies?" Jackson asked. "I have no connection to Meridian." Kate hesitated, exchanging a glance with Agent Taylor. "Actually, you do. Your college roommate, David Chen, is Meridian's CTO." Jackson stared at her, genuinely surprised. "David? We haven't spoken in years." "He's been following your career closely," Kate replied, "and he was recently overheard at a Silicon Valley conference saying you wouldn't recognize a cybersecurity breakthrough if it was handed to you in a prospectus." Despite the gravity of the situation, Marcus couldn't suppress a small smile. "Sounds like there's history there." Jackson shook his head, memories flooding back. "We competed for the same venture capital funding our senior year. My project got backed, his didn't. Ancient history." "Not to him, apparently," Kate said. "We believe Chen identified Bennett Technologies as a target, but when he learned you were the potential buyer, the operation took on a personal dimension." "So this isn't just business," Jackson said slowly. "It's revenge." The realization hit him like a physical blow. Throughout his career, Jackson had made decisions based purely on profit potential, rarely considering the human impact. How many David Chens had he created over the years? How many people carried grudges he'd long forgotten? A loud knock interrupted his thoughts. Agent Taylor moved swiftly to the door, gun drawn, while Kate positioned herself protectively near Marcus and Jackson. "It's Collins," came a voice from the other side. "We've got a situation." Taylor verified the agent's identity before opening the door. The newcomer handed Kate a tablet, speaking urgently. "Facial recognition just flagged this at JFK, taken 30 minutes ago." Kate studied the screen, then showed it to Jackson and Marcus. The image showed a man in a suit passing through security. "Lawrence Westlake," Marcus identified immediately. "He's leaving the country. Private flight to Zurich," the agent confirmed. "We're working on grounding the plane, but he's got connections in high places. Strings are being pulled." "He's running," Jackson stated flatly. "Which means the operation is either complete or compromised beyond salvation." "Or transitioning to its next phase," Kate suggested. "If they can't acquire Bennett Technologies through you, they might have a contingency plan." Marcus's phone chimed with a notification. He checked it, then looked up with alarm. "Emergency board meeting has been called for tomorrow morning. I didn't authorize this." Who has the authority to call such a meeting? Kate asked. The board chair, Victoria Harding, Marcus replied, but she always consults with me first. Jackson accessed his own phone, quickly searching through business news. Harding was appointed to the International Finance Committee last month, a prestigious position that came rather suddenly. Another compromised executive, Kate concluded. They're making their move. Jackson turned to Marcus. What could the board do without your approval? Vote to reject your acquisition offer and entertain alternatives, Marcus answered grimly. With the right pressure and misinformation, they could force a sale to a different buyer. Meridian Capital, Jackson guessed. Kate was already coordinating with her team. We need to secure Harding and identify any other compromised board members, and we need to do it before that meeting. That won't be enough, Jackson said, pacing the room as he formulated a strategy. Even if we neutralize their influence on the board, Westlake is escaping with all the evidence. Without him, we can't prove the extent of the conspiracy or recover potentially stolen intellectual property. A tense silence fell over the room as they grappled with the rapidly evolving situation. Then, unexpectedly, Marcus began to laugh, a short, humorless sound. What's funny about this? Jackson demanded. Just the irony, Marcus replied. 24 hours ago, you were trying to talk me down to 180 million. Now we're plotting to save my company together. Jackson allowed himself a small smile. Business makes strange bedfellows. We need to split our focus, Kate decided. One team to secure the board, another to intercept Westlake. I'm going after Westlake, Jackson stated firmly. Kate shook her head. Absolutely not. You're a civilian and a potential target. You stay here under protection. Jackson stood his ground. I have 3 advantages you don't. First, I can get onto a private plane without raising suspicions. Second, I have legitimate business in Zurich. My company's European headquarters are there. And third, he paused, David Chen will talk to me. Whatever his grievances, we have history. It's too risky, Agent Taylor objected. It's our best play, Jackson countered. While I track Westlake and Chen, Marcus secures his board with your help. 2 fronts, simultaneous pressure. Kate studied him with newfound respect. You're suggesting we use you as bait. I'm suggesting I do what I do best. Close a deal, Jackson replied. But this time the terms are justice rather than profit. Marcus stood. If Jackson's going to Zurich, I'm not sitting here while my company gets dismantled. I need to be at that board meeting. The FBI agents exchanged glances, silently weighing the pros and cons. Finally, Kate nodded. We'll need to establish secure communications and have agents with both of you at all times. Agreed, Jackson said, but they follow our lead in their respective environments. No one will believe I'm conducting normal business with FBI agents, visibly controlling my movements. As they hammered out the details, Jackson felt an unfamiliar sensation, a sense of purpose beyond profit margins and market share. For the first time in years, he was fighting for something larger than his own interests. His phone vibrated with an incoming call. His executive assistant again. He answered, keeping his voice casual. Sandra, I need the jet ready in an hour. Zurich. Tell Evan to prepare the penthouse at European headquarters. He paused. And Sandra? No one else can know about this, not even the board. As he ended the call, Jackson caught Kate watching him with a mixture of concern and curiosity. What? He asked. You're enjoying this, she observed. The danger, the stakes. Jackson considered her words. I built my company by taking calculated risks when others wouldn't. This is just another high-stakes negotiation, with slightly more literal consequences. Just remember, Kate warned, these people have already killed to protect their operation. They won't hesitate to eliminate anyone who threatens it, even a billionaire. Jackson nodded, the gravity of the situation settling over him once more. In business, losing meant bankruptcy or a damaged reputation. Here it meant lives, possibly his own. As preparations accelerated around him, Jackson found himself thinking of the waitress who had interrupted his meeting. How different would things be if Kate hadn't intervened at that precise moment? The $200 million deal now seemed trivial compared to the conspiracy they'd uncovered. Sometimes, he reflected, the most important business decisions were the ones you didn't get to make, the deals that fate interrupted just seconds before the signatures dried. The Zurich air was crisp as Jackson stepped off his private jet, the Swiss Alps visible in the distance. Agent Melissa Rivera, posing as his executive assistant, walked 2 steps behind him, her alert eyes scanning the tarmac. Unlike the chaos of their New York escape, this arrival was deliberately understated, a business titan making a routine visit to his European headquarters. "Cars waiting," Rivera murmured as they approached the terminal. Westlake's flight landed 40 minutes ago. He checked into the Bourg-au-Lac Hotel downtown. Jackson nodded almost imperceptibly. Over the 6-hour flight, he had studied everything the FBI had on Lawrence Westlake and refreshed his memory of David Chen. Childhood friends turned college roommates turned estranged rivals. It was almost Shakespearean in its simplicity. His phone vibrated with a secure message from Kate. "Bennett entering board meeting now. 5 members present. 2 confirmed compromised. Proceeding with plan." Across the Atlantic, the other half of their operation was underway. Marcus would be walking into that boardroom with FBI agents disguised as his security detail, prepared to expose Victoria Harding and her co-conspirators. Jackson allowed himself a moment of respect for the man. It took courage to face betrayal so directly. "I've arranged a meeting with the bank's board," Jackson told Rivera as they settled into the Mercedes. "Standard procedure for major European operations. Westlake will hear about it through his financial surveillance. Laying the breadcrumbs." Rivera nodded approvingly. "But what makes you sure Chen will appear?" Jackson gazed out at Lake Zurich as they drove along its shoreline. "Because David never could resist proving he was smarter than me." The Zurich financial district hummed with the quiet power of old money. Jackson moved through the bank's marble lobby with practiced ease, Rivera and 2 other agents posing as his executive team. As arranged, the meeting with the bank's directors proceeded normally, discussing Titan Ventures' European expansion, all for the benefit of anyone watching. As the meeting concluded, Jackson checked his watch. "I need some air. I'll walk back to the office." This deviation from his security protocol earned him a sharp look from Rivera, but she adapted smoothly. "We'll follow at a distance, sir." The cobblestone streets of Zurich's old town provided the perfect setting for what came next. Jackson walked alone, appearing to take in the medieval architecture while actually scanning for surveillance. 3 blocks from the bank, he spotted him, David Chen, sitting at an outdoor cafe, pretending to read a newspaper. 20 years had added gray to Chen's temples, and success to his bearing, but Jackson would have recognized him anywhere. Without hesitation, he changed direction and approached the cafe. "The Alps Echo has always been a terrible newspaper," Jackson remarked, stopping at Chen's table. "Their business section is particularly misinformed." Chen lowered the paper slowly, his expression unreadable. "Some would say the same about your investment strategies, Jackson." "Mind if I join you for old time's sake?" Chen gestured to the empty chair. "I assumed our paths would cross eventually, though I expected it would be in a boardroom, not a cafe." Jackson sat down, studying his former friend. "I think we've had enough boardroom drama lately, don't you? Bennett Technologies, Westridge Industries, Colonial Software. You've been busy." If Chen was surprised by Jackson's knowledge, he didn't show it. "Business is business. Some acquire companies through charm and connections, others through strategy and leverage." "And murder?" Jackson asked quietly. "Was William Parker's death just business too?" At this, Chen's composure flickered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." Jackson leaned forward. "The FBI is dismantling your operation as we speak. Victoria Harding and 2 other Bennett board members are being taken into custody right now. Lawrence Westlake is being monitored at his hotel. It's over, David." Chen's eyes darted briefly to the street, calculating escape routes. Jackson noted the gesture with a pang of sadness. The brilliant student he'd known had become this. "Whatever you think you know," Chen said finally, "you can't prove anything. Certainly nothing connecting me personally." Jackson pulled out his phone and activated the recording function, a move both agents Rivera and Sullivan had strictly forbidden. "That sounds suspiciously like an admission of guilt." "It's an observation about burden of proof," Chen countered smoothly. "Hypothetically speaking, even if such an operation existed, its architecture would ensure multiple layers of separation between planning and execution." "Like Parker's suicide?" "Hypothetically speaking." Chen's jaw tightened. "Unfortunate circumstances happen in business." Jackson studied his former friend, seeing past the expensive suit to the insecure young man who had always needed to prove himself. "This isn't about business. It's about me, isn't it? All these years, all this elaborate planning. You wanted to beat me at my own game. Don't flatter yourself, Chen scoffed, but the slight flush on his cheeks betrayed him. You orchestrated this entire operation, not just for profit, but to systematically dismantle a company I was acquiring. To watch me fail publicly. Jackson shook his head. Was it worth it? The lives ruined. A man dead. Chen's expression hardened. You've ruined plenty of lives with your acquisitions, Jackson. How many companies have you gutted? How many jobs eliminated for operational efficiency? The accusation struck home. Jackson had always justified his business decisions as necessary for growth, for shareholder value. He'd never considered them in terms of human cost. I never ordered anyone killed, he said quietly. Neither did I, Chen replied, but his eyes shifted away. Jackson leaned back, understanding dawning. You didn't know about Parker, did you? Westlake took that initiative on his own. Chen's silence was answer enough. Jackson saw the operation clearly now. Chen had designed the financial strategy, but Westlake had implemented it, escalating beyond Chen's intentions when complications arose. It got away from you, Jackson pressed. You created something you couldn't control. We're done here. Chen stood abruptly. Enjoy your speculation, Jackson. It won't hold up in any court. Actually, it will, came Kate Sullivan's voice from behind them. She approached the table, no longer in waitress attire, but wearing a tailored suit that commanded respect. David Chen, you're under arrest for conspiracy, securities fraud, and accessory to murder. Chen's face registered shock as two Swiss police officers appeared beside Kate. This is international waters. The FBI has no jurisdiction. True, Kate agreed. But the Swiss Financial Market Supervisory Authority does. They've been extremely interested in Meridian Capital's activities through Swiss banks. We're cooperating on this investigation. As the officers moved to detain Chen, he looked at Jackson with undisguised hatred. You set me up. No, David, Jackson replied evenly. You did that yourself 20 years ago when you decided I was your enemy instead of just your competitor. Agent Rivera emerged from a nearby shop as Chen was led away. Westlake is in custody too. Swiss authorities intercepted him attempting to access a private vault at Zurich Central Bank. Jackson nodded, feeling strangely hollow. Winning had always energized him, but this victory tasted different. Necessary, but somber. We recovered encrypted drives from Westlake, Kate added. Initial analysis suggests they contain proprietary technologies stolen from multiple companies, including Bennett Technologies. Jackson's phone rang, Marcus Bennett calling from New York. It's done, Marcus said without preamble. The board meeting turned into quite a spectacle when the FBI walked in. Victoria Harding actually tried to eat a flash drive. Despite everything, Jackson laughed. How did the uncorrupted board members react? Shock, then anger, then gratitude, Marcus replied. The company's safe, Jackson. And the acquisition? Jackson considered the question as he gazed across Lake Zurich. The $200 million deal that had started this entire saga now seemed like a footnote. Let's discuss it when I return, he said. I think we both need to reevaluate our priorities. 3 days later, Jackson stood at the windows of his Manhattan office. The city spread before him like a concrete kingdom. The Bennett Technologies acquisition had been finalized that morning at the full $200 million, with additional provisions for rehabilitating the damage done by the conspiracy. A knock at the door announced Kate Sullivan's arrival. No longer undercover, she carried herself with the confident authority of an experienced agent. Congratulations on closing your deal, she said, accepting the seat he offered. I hear congratulations are in order for you as well, Jackson replied. The director personally commended your operation. Kate nodded modestly. The case exposed vulnerabilities in how we monitor financial crimes. Changes are already being implemented. And Chen, Westlake, facing multiple charges in multiple jurisdictions. Given the evidence recovered, they'll be occupied with legal proceedings for years. Jackson turned back to the window, processing everything that had happened. I've been thinking about what Chen said, about the human cost of my business practices. Kate studied him curiously. Having regrets? Reassessing, Jackson corrected. I've always measured success in dollars and market share, never considered that every spreadsheet cell represents actual lives. People can change, Mr. Reed, Kate observed. Even billionaires. Jackson smiled slightly. Perhaps. I've established a fund for employees affected by my past acquisitions. And I'm implementing a new policy at Titan Ventures. We preserve jobs wherever possible, even at the cost of some short-term profit. Sounds like this experience changed you. Let's say it interrupted my usual programming, Jackson replied. In a way, I should thank you for that moment in the restaurant. Sir, you need to leave right now. You did more than save my life. You forced me to see it differently. A comfortable silence fell between them, the unlikeliest of partnerships forged in extraordinary circumstances. What about Marcus Bennett? Kate asked finally. How does he feel about becoming part of Titan Ventures after everything that happened? He's not, Jackson said simply. I changed the terms of the acquisition. Bennett Technologies remains independent with a strategic partnership with Titan. Marcus retains control. Kate's eyebrows rose in surprise. That's not your usual approach. As you said, Agent Sullivan, people can change. Jackson picked up a folder from his desk. I've also been reviewing my company's ethical guidelines. I'd appreciate your perspective if you're willing. Kate accepted the folder with a smile. I might have some thoughts. Over dinner, perhaps? Jackson looked at her with new interest, seeing not just the federal agent, but the intelligent, courageous woman beneath the badge. I know a good restaurant, though I suggest we avoid the private dining room this time. Agreed, Kate laughed, and no $200 million negotiations. Just two people getting to know each other beyond a crisis, Jackson suggested. I find I'm more interested in people than deals these days. As they left the office together, Jackson reflected on the strange path that had led him here. An interrupted business meeting, a whispered warning, a high-stakes conspiracy, all culminating